Well, at least one of the Baselworld 2021s has been cancelled so far. Just some thoughts about, will there be any more Baselworlds, and if so, what will they look like? Okay, so the news is out. It's a couple of weeks old, but one of the Baselworlds that was going to be held in 2021, probably the one that we would call Baselworld 2020, which got moved to January 2021, has been cancelled. No word yet on whether the actual Basel 2021 will proceed. There's a press release talking about other things, other platforms, other ways of moving forward, all very amicable and everything. Look, other people have covered it. Go read it there. I suppose I've got a couple of questions, sort of bigger questions. One was, did Baselworld ever really have a chance of surviving? And secondly, if it is going to live on past there, what might it look like? So we'll answer that first one. Look, YouTubers like me and actually big important YouTubers have been kind of dining out for the last couple of years on the problems of Baselworld, and we've slated everything from poor white, not me because I haven't been, but reporting what other people have said, poor Wi-Fi coverage, poor press coverage, poor access to sites, don't get to touch and play with many of the watches, really busy, you get really hurried. That's not a good place for punters to go to. And then at the other end, we even talk about people being charged exorbitant amounts for hotel rooms and sausages and chairs in restaurants and stuff like that. I'm not saying that any of that is not true. I'm convinced all of that is absolutely true. Where it gets interesting is, for years people have been saying Baselworld needs to fix all of those things or it's going to die. And then when Baselworld died, there's been a lot of people kind of crowing kind of on the basis that if only you'd listened to us earlier, if only it's all MCH's fault. If you look at what has effectively replaced Baselworld for those companies that have left, I've actually been wondering if Baselworld ever really stood a chance, because the companies that have left Baselworld have not replaced it with anything remotely like for like. They haven't replaced Baselworld with a kind of general admission, open to the public, mass market extravaganza, which would be an equivalent to Baselworld. In fact, what they've done is generally go from Baselworld, which was becoming increasingly consumer friendly, increasingly mass media friendly, increasingly a destination, and they've left that and almost entirely gone to much smaller, very brand controlled, very brand to industry focused events where the consumer is actively pushed out. So with that in mind, and looking at where people went, I found myself sort of with some sympathy for MCH in a way, in that, yeah, look, they could have done better, but I don't think they could have possibly done enough. The reality was the show that they were putting on, a show that was increasingly about us, the punter, us, the general population, us, the people, wasn't what their customers, the people who were paying the bills, wanted. So on one hand, look, MCH could have done a lot better job. They could have maybe delayed the death stroke by another year or so. But increasingly I'm of the view that they were always going to lose the people that they have lost. I do find myself wondering if they had worked that out. I suspect they had not, or if they'd worked it out, they had kind of tried to pretend it wasn't real. But yeah, I don't think they have ever stood a chance. Now, that raises the question of, is Baselworld dead? Well, Baselworld as it was is clearly dead. Those people who left Baselworld don't want the product they make available. They want something smaller, something that they control, something that does not have to involve other brands. That is the antithesis of the very purpose of Baselworld. So those companies that have left are never, ever coming back. So Baselworld, as we knew it, dead. So the question now becomes, what could Baselworld be? Now I've got like 2.5 options. I call it 2.5 and you'll see why. I have no idea about the financial viability of these things. These are things I would like Baselworld to continue. These are 2 ways I could see that 2.5 ways that I could see it might continue. And I would be happy if it did go this way. But look, it could be that the numbers never stack up and no one would go and it wouldn't get any coverage and MCH would simply lose more money. I don't know. But this is what I would like to see. So option number 1 is that Baselworld actually embrace where it was going and openly advertise itself in contrast to the shows that of those brands that have left. Position itself as the people's show. Position itself as the show of the regular consumer, the regular watch buyer. Let the 1% go to their things at the 1% shows and let them and cater for the 99%. So move it around so brands don't have to have these massive great facilities designed to deal with other businesses and business-to-business transactions. They can shrink it right down, recreate them as essentially massive showrooms, take all the emphasis even off, for a lot of people, take the emphasis off even showing novelties. This doesn't necessarily have to be your chance to release, this year's new watches. It's just your opportunity to put your full collection out in front of people when there's a lot of other people around and generate buzz. You could even avoid, or you could actually mess with, kind of in the same way that Richemont trolls Rolex through their, it's the watch finder, is it? Whatever their website one is. My brain stopped working. And sort of, so here we are, a Richemont brand a Richemont owned secondary watch seller that talks about Rolex quite a bit, makes money by selling Rolex. It would be interesting if you had, for example, Joma Shop turning up, presenting vast arrays of Rolexes for sale at the show of the people at Baselworld. Now that might not happen, but I just think that there's ways of, in Australia we had a lot of cases where people came up with ways of having football shows and being able to talk about the football whilst not actually owning the rights to any football channels. I think take that concept of saying, find another way to get Rolex and Patek and AP and Chopard into your show without actually involving the OEMs. Maybe Watches of Switzerland comes in. Now, they probably wouldn't be allowed to by Rolex. So you'd be looking at the grey market, the secondary market. As I said, places like Joma Shop or Chronext or Chrono 24 to set up massive stalls and have them bring the watches that people could look at and make them available for sale. So that's one option, the show of the people. Option number 2 is go hardcore trade show. So sort of Hong Kong watch show type style. Keep what you've got going with the smaller and the independents, but add to it that plethora of smaller ateliers that make dials and hands and crystals and rubies and mainsprings and whatever else, and bring them in so that that part of the industry that I think a lot of people would be actually quite interested in comes into the open. Use it as a base for people to start trying to support the other parts of the industry, throw micro brands in there. As I said, like the Hong Kong Watch Show, which is hugely popular, has vast numbers of people. And in fact, given the collapse of what's happened in Hong Kong between the uprisings and everything, there's every possibility that you could essentially become the Hong Kong Watch Show and create a lot of that same thing over there in future. Option 2.5 is really do both. It's not a new option, it's do both. In my industry, in aviation, I have a lot to do with air shows. Air shows routinely split into two completely different parts of the show. You have the trade area for the first couple of days, which is like people that sell hydraulic tubes and training packages on how to use particular test equipment, or little training schools for how to become a particular kind of technician. But then when the public days, those stands either shrink down to very little and they mostly go home, or sometimes those stands completely go away and they're replaced by stands for people that do nothing but talk to consumers. I think that is actually my really most preferred option. You might find that just like an air show, you don't run every show every year. So you might run just the public show every year, and then the trade guys come in and have a massive show every 2 years or every 4 years. I think there's a number of options. So my favorite option, what I would love to see Baselworld turn into, would be the show of the people that brings together those brands who do like to position themselves as the brands of the people. So brands like Frederic Constant and Alpina, which are two of my favorites, but also Oris, who very much position themselves as the brand of the enthusiast. Reach out to them and say, this is your show, this is your opportunity. Now, whether that's possible from a pricing point of view or whether it makes sense for those brands, I don't know. But wouldn't it be great to see a show of the people which was focused on bringing watches to us, the people who actually spend the money on them. And then wouldn't it be great to also us, the people who are, particularly us, the geeky ones who make YouTube videos and watch YouTube videos, be able to see behind the curtain a little bit and start to see those people that make the movements and the cases and the hands and the crystals that we all kind of miss sometimes. Anyway, that's what I would love to see. I don't know if it'll happen. I suspect it won't. This is more of a wish piece than a prediction piece. What would you like to see happen with Baselworld? Are you just sick of it? You're happy to see it die. You don't care whether it ever happens again. Okay, very quickly. I didn't touch on the electronic part. Yeah, there will be some electronic parts. I think that they will not replace. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think they actually replace the real life, the IRL show, or at least nothing I've seen so far does. Maybe if, like the watches, I was a little bit critical in an earlier video when I spoke about the Watches and Wonders, virtual event. The guys at TBWS were much stronger and much more accurate when they said ultimately the Watches and Wonders online event was a website. It was an average style kind of amateur blog. That wasn't an online event. An online event would be, say, something like, and maybe this is another option for, oh God, I'm just thinking of it. Maybe what might work for Baselworld would be something like BlizzCon. So an online event that you actually pay to go to, that you get a t-shirt for going to, and that gives you a ticket to come in and watch actual things and get to see things earlier than anyone else. That would be an interesting event. Imagine a show where you pay, that's a weird question. Would you pay $20 to get onto a website and watch the releases of new material before anyone else? Even before Hodinkee and so those guys don't want to go to this show because it's not their brand. Great, you can pay $20 and you get to see it before they do. They don't even get embargoed copies. Would that be interesting to you? I think those, if maybe you've got to get Baselworld needs to get out of the space of showing physical things and instead start thinking in terms of how do we make our money and look at how the gaming community does it. I just had a random thought doing the interview, so doing the video. So this could be the worst video ever, but you know what? I kind of like the flow. So yeah, that's another thought. What are other things that they can do? Or as I said before, do you think they're dead and good riddance? You couldn't care less. Let us know in the comments below. Like I said, I'm making no predictions here. This is just a wish on my behalf. I'm not particularly interested in your predictions. What I'd be interested in is what would you like to see? I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. I haven't said it for ages, but if you can hit the subscribe button, that'd be great. And I'll see you later. Bye.